Welcome to Learn Ubuntu Live. This presentation covers some important computer basics. For those of you that are real newbies, this will be a very handy and informative presentation. When we started this course, we wanted to have a course that was a true beginning, meaning that if you've never used a computer before, you can still start with this course. Now, if you previously had some computing experience and maybe even had some Linux experience, try not to get bored. You may still learn something. If nothing else, you will learn how to use this website. So you move on to a more advanced course, you already have the skills necessary to use the tools we put here on the website for you. Now, this is just a few important computing basics, and again, we put this section in for the extreme newbie. Now, here's a computer. You look at that box. There's a million pieces inside. You might say, oh, my God, what the heck is that? Now, first thing to understand about computers is hardware versus software. Compare it to a VCR or a TV. They're both pieces of hardware, and the software is the videos you watch. They're not very entertaining without those software videos, are they? Without those TV programs to watch. Well, in the same way, the computer is a piece of hardware, and on it we run software. And there are four basic types of computer software: the operating system, application software such as the OpenOffice series of applications, the Writer, the Calc spreadsheet, the email applications. There's also utility software, which you usually find under the Systems section of the menu, and development software. Development software is actually writing applications or creating a website. There are some other popular types of operating systems. First of all, there's Linux, the free Unix-like operating system that this course is all about. Its grandfather, Unix, which was invented by AT&T back in the late 60s, early 70s in Bell Labs. You have your many versions of Windows. You also have the DOS operating system. If you've been around for a while like me, you may have had some experience with the DOS operating system, which predated Windows. The original PCs had DOS, and then they had DOS with the older Windows that ran on top of the DOS. And a lot of people happen to like the Macintosh. Now, the latest Macintosh series of operating systems are all based on FreeBSD, so I consider them our wonderful cousin imprisoned by corporate America. Here's an example again of application software. This is an OpenOffice Calc, which is a spreadsheet program which you can use to track expenses in your business or for your home or personal use. Under accessories, under the applications menu rather, we have further categories such as games, graphics programs, internet applications, OpenOffice applications, sound and video applications, and more. Utility software, one example, if you use Windows, is Norton 360, which is antivirus. You don't have much need for antivirus in Unix or Linux, because Linux and Macintosh are not really susceptible to viruses in the normal sense. Linux utility software, one is this one here I'm showing, which is a Thunar from the Thunar file manager, lets you bulk rename files. I find this very handy. There's more utility software, I said, under System Administration in the menu. Disk utilities, utilities to set up printers, utilities to check hardware drivers, disk utilities, update manager to update your system, Synaptic Package Manager, which you can also use to install software. Most people tend to now use the Ubuntu Software Center, but the predecessor to that, and still included, is the Synaptic Package Manager. I find that very handy. If you're a little more experienced, you might like that. That lets you actually look for some support files and libraries and things. Development software. I'm showing you, actually, this is the menu off of one of my systems. We have Eclipse, which can be used for Java development, also for C development, PHP, a lot of language. Eclipse has a lot of plugins that lets it work with many different programming languages. Here we also see NetBeans, which is Sun Java's, which is now Oracle Sun Java's own development system. I have some MySQL tools here for developing MySQL databases and others. This is all development type of software. If you're a newbie, this is probably not the kind of stuff you're going to start out using, but you'd be surprised. We'll have you using it in no time at all if you stick with us. Now, no matter how sophisticated any of these programs are, no matter what you want to do, whether it's an application, a utility, development software, deep down inside, there's really only 4 basic things that a computer does. And these programs just manipulate those 4 basic things. They take input, data can come into the PC. It puts output data to the screen or to the printer to another port. The data can be processed, such as mathematical formulas run. Strings can be modified. Data can be processed, like in a word processor. You can create a document. And it has a way to store it, usually on the hard drive. But those are the 4 basic functions. And we're talking about a computer. A computer really is a pretty dumb piece of hardware. Without the software, it's as dumb as dirt. And these are the 4 basic things that a computer can do. Now let's talk about our input-output ports. Maybe somebody hooked up your computer for you. It's about time you started to learn about what some of these ports are. Here's a connection panel on a computer. You see here we have serial ports. This is an older one. We actually have a parallel port. You have some USB ports, which are the newer high-speed serial ports. You may have some firewire ports, a network connector for a network cable, a network port, and your sound card ports. We're going to see these in details. Here are your sound card ports here. Here's your network port. These are USB ports. Here's your VGA monitor connector, your LPT printer port, a legacy serial port, and these are your PS2 keyboard and mouse ports. So we're going to see these more in detail. Again, here is our PS2 mouse and keyboard ports. And again, many of the new machines don't even have these. A lot of new machines, it's all USB ports. And it makes it a lot easier in a lot of ways. Here's a VGA port for your display. You may have 2 of each if you have 2 displays. Or you may just have 1, or you may have a different looking display. You may have a display that looks more like this. This is a DVI type of display, which is a newer type of display. It's all digital. The VGA is actually analog, RGB. Again, here is our legacy serial port. These are much slower than the USB ports, but it is a serial port. Here is our USB ports. This particular machine has 4 USB ports on it. And above those in this machine, there we see is our network port. Now the network port is for connecting a Category 5 cable. You also may have a wireless network connection if you have a laptop or a newer type of PC. These are our sound ports. If you look closely at these, here you can see, you usually see a little arrow which tells you the direction. Normally, they're color-coded. They may not all be, but normally they are. Normally, a blue is the line input for a high-level signal input. If you wanted to play your Android phone. I have my Android phone and my Android tablet, and I was playing some music earlier by using that going into a port. Here's your high-level output port. This would normally go to a set of speakers. Here's a microphone input port for a microphone. A microphone is much lower level than an Android phone output or a CD player or a tape player, or whatever you might have for an audio source that you want to get into the computer and possibly record. Now, if you have a laptop, you still have some ports. In fact, here on this laptop, I'm showing you the speakers on this laptop are left and right over here. The speakers are built in. But there's also other ports available on the laptop. On the laptop on the front or on the side, here I have a headphone output port and a microphone input port. On my laptop here, you may also have an external VGA connector. You could use that to hook up a second display to if you wanted to. The Ubuntu supports multiple displays. Almost all the machines I use have 2 displays. Once you get used to using 2 displays, you never want to go back. Here's a legacy printer port. Now, you don't see too many of these days. However, they are popular. If you have a legacy LPT printer, you can use that. Or sometimes I've also seen an external drive hooked to these ports. Many of the newer PCs don't even have these anymore. They're fading out. But we all don't have the latest and the greatest, believe me, I know. Here also on this laptop we have a USB port here. This one happens to have an S video port, which you can connect to a regular video monitor or VCR to record. And you have a PCMCIA slot. Some of the older laptops supported the PCMCIA cards. And this one has a little mini FireWire port, which you have to use a special adapter cable to use. Here's where our Ethernet cable plugs into the PC. This is on the other side, or in the back on this one. This one also happens to have a USB port. So you have to kind of look around. You got to kind of look around the periphery of the PC, and you'll find these different ports in different places. Now, we'll talk a little bit about what's inside the box. What's inside the box? Sometimes we wonder what's inside the box. There's a lot of different pieces in there. You open it up, maybe a little scary at first. Just like this room is a little scary at first, but it's really not. But we're just going to highlight a few of these things. So it's always nice to know a little bit about what's going inside the PC, especially if you're a newbie. You can talk to somebody and it might make a little more sense. You know, gee, I think it might be something with my memory, or I think my processor's running slow. You know, as time goes, you'll be able to talk intelligently to people and to get some help for yourself. Maybe even help somebody else. But as you can see here, inside this PC, this big circuit board that everything is mounted to is called the motherboard. Everything is on the motherboard. It's the mother of all boards. Here, this fan is sitting on top of the processor. That's the brain of the unit. That's what is used to process the data. That does all the computing power. But the processor wouldn't be any good without these things here, the memory chips. That's the RAM. When you have a program open and you're working on a document, it's in RAM. Very important. If you don't save it, it's gone. That's why we have storage. And we want to emphasize that point here. If you're working on something on the computer and the power goes out, or your battery runs out in the laptop, and you haven't saved it, it's gone. So keep that in mind. Save often. Again, keep in mind there are 4 basic tasks that the computer does. Input, processing, output, and storage. And computers, programs, all control the order and what they're doing with those 4 basic tasks. Storage is usually on a hard drive. is a picture of a hard drive, and you probably have one of these in your computer somewhere. This is where the data stays. They could range from 10 gigabytes to 300 gigabytes to a terabyte. They just keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. My first PC had a walloping 200 megabyte hard drive. Then I bought a 1 gigabyte SCSI hard drive. That was impressive. Now, typically 40 gig, 50 gig, 80 gig, 100 gig, 360 gig, 500 gig. But everything you save stays there. Then we'll talk about floppies. Not too many people use these anymore, but they're worth mentioning just for the legacy and the history of it all. This is a 1.44 megabyte floppy. Most external media now or USB drive holds so much more. Nobody ever hardly uses these. But if you're heading into the maintenance area or PC repair area, you may find occasionally that you save the day with one of these legacy devices. They call it a floppy drive. What's floppy about this? It looks hard to me. By the way, never do this. Don't leave any kind of media like that on top of a CRT monitor. When that monitor gets turned on, the screen is degaussed, demagnetized. It will also demagnetize your disk. If you demagnetize the disk, your data is gone because the data is stored on the disk magnetically. And here's the inside of a floppy drive. We open this one up and you can see inside that hard case, gee golly gosh, it actually is a floppy drive. A hard disk, comparatively, has hard disk platters inside. And usually there's several platters and several heads that work in synchronicity. It's a fairly sophisticated electromechanical device. Now, when you're working, again, it's important to save your work, and most likely it's saved from the File, Save menu. Note that we have Save, Save As, and Save All. We go into more detail on that in the course. Save, Save As, and Save All. What that does is that lets you save over what you have, or you can update what you have. Very important, and we will be discussing that in detail. Again, I keep repeating this because it's so important for basic understanding of computers. There's 4 basic tasks. 4 basic tasks that a computer does. Input, processing, output, and storage. And no matter how sophisticated a program may be, the computer only does those 4 things underneath it all. And that's the last thing we'll leave you with, to think about that. This has just been an outline of the first few chapters of our beginning course. I hope this gets you thinking in the right vein as you go through these chapters and do the lab exercises and the self-assessment quizzes and the readings and the homework assignments. This information should start to gel for you. So that's our presentations for this day. We went through 3 chapters of this Learn Ubuntu course for you and outline the highlights of those chapters. These will be available on our website for playback in the student how-to section for those of you that missed this. And we hope it was helpful and that you'll be back again.